It'll be okay, Bambi. I'm sorry somebody shot your mother. I wish hunters would go away forever. Oh, excuse me. I was just watching Bambi and wondering what makes a bloody good movie character. What makes one of the best movie characters of all time? A character that you completely fall in love with. You cheer for them, you cry for them. They feel like they're somebody that you know, that they're a friend. How do movie characters get inside you so deeply that you really, really come to care about them? Let's take a look as we dive into the best movie characters of all time. Tony Montana. You the cockroach. If you ever sit down for a lovely pint or a cherry coke or whatever you like to drink, you ever get to sit down for a drink with an acting student, with a writer, with a screenwriter, with anybody like that, ask them what makes a bloody good character. I've had this conversation a lot, and honestly, the amount of different opinions that you hear about what makes a great character is mind-boggling. As a good character must sacrifice themselves, the fantasy writer will tell you. A good character must have a guiding set of principles and morals, is what the literati will say. An artist will say a good character must be well drawn, with the right sense of fashion, the right face, and they'll focus on the physical aspects. But there's one thing that all these people will agree with. That is that a great character has to be spontaneous. You can't know what a great movie character is going to do next. You have to have that suspense, which only comes from an unpredictable character. One of the best spontaneous characters of all time is Tony Montana. Tony Montana. Think about it. Think about the restaurant scene in Scarface, right? They're sitting there having a meal. All of a sudden, Tony Montana's like, "You a bunch of assholes. You know why? You don't have the guts to be what you want to be, like me. You need people like me in your life so you can point your fingers and say, there he is. There's the bad guy." You know that scene? That is one of the most spontaneous sequences in the whole of the movies. A spontaneous character like Tony Montana makes you sit at the edge of your seat. Why? Because you don't know what they're going to do next. They're so spontaneous, so unpredictable that anything could happen.
What can I say?
Nice and fat in your baby, shababu, when you're Simba. Simba. How did I just go from Tony Montana to Simba? Gonna be the main event, but no king was before. How's that work? What the hell do Tony Montana and Simba have in common other than being two of the best characters of all time? Well, actually, Tony Montana and Simba illustrate two of the most essential points of great movie characters. Great movie characters must have principles, and they must go through a character development. Now you're probably thinking, how's a Tony Montana got principles, Paul? Or you might just be thinking it in regular English, how's Tony Montana got principles, Paul? Well, if you think about the scene in Scarface, when he's going to assassinate the dude in a car, and then he realizes that also in the car is a woman and a kid, and that if he assassinates that guy, he will kill them too, and he stops doing it, it becomes obvious that Tony Montana has a guiding set of principles, which is one of the cornerstones of a great character. Now, Simba also has a guiding set of principles. They revolve around the circle of life. In the beginning of The Lion King, Simba is learning everything he can about the circle of life, about the natural order of things, with his daddy telling him all about the world and all about nature. And then When his dad dies and he feels responsible, he flees because he thinks that he's interfered with the natural way of life, with the circle of life. So he goes and becomes a vagabond with Timon and Pumbaa. Hakuna Matata, right? And it's not until he realizes that Pride Rock, where he's from, has been more ruined by Scar than by anything ever, and that Scar has interfered with the circle of life more than anything. It's not until then that he returns to Pride Rock and makes his wonderful climb up the hill and makes his legendary roar to become the king of Pride Rock. Simba's guiding principles are all around the circle of life. So that's one reason. That moral code is one reason why Simba is such a great character. But then he also goes through one hell of a character development. He's only a little lion. He starts off as a little princely lion cub, nestling into Nala and his mama and having a nice good snuggle, right? And then he accidentally kind of is instrumental in the death of his dad. So he runs away from home, becomes a vagabond, does the whole Kuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase, etc., right? And then he returns and becomes a king. So he's gone from being a princely cub to a homeless person to a king, all in one story, which is a masterfully told story and based on Hamlet, by the way. If you haven't read Hamlet, please read it because it's the best book, it was the best play ever written. So Simba goes through one hell of a character development, and it's the kind of character development that makes a character so damn strong. You cannot have a bloody good character unless you have a really good character development.
What can I say?
The ensemble characters of Star Wars. Now, you're going to hate me when I say this, and you're going to want to get a lightsaber and stick it where the sun does not shine. But the simple fact of the matter is that Luke Skywalker, isolated from the other characters, would be a very bland and typical hero character. He starts out on a farm, he discovers a power that has somehow remained dormant inside of him. A wise old man teaches him how to control that power, and he takes down an evil force. It's the same story that's been told for thousands of years. There's nothing unique in that aspect about Star Wars and about Luke Skywalker. Taken of his own accord, he would not be one of the greatest movie characters of all time. But all great writers know that what really matters with a set of characters is the way those characters feed into each other. Different characters, secondary characters, the opposing character, the evil guy, the love interest, they should all change the character, the lead character, the protagonist, in a specific way. And that's precisely what happens in Star Wars. Because every character that Luke meets reveals a new aspect of his persona. He meets Han Solo and suddenly he's able to do what he's never done, and he leaves his home and becomes involved in the world and finds his independence. Obi-Wan, of course, helps him to learn that he's more than just a humble farm boy. Yoda reveals a spiritual side of Luke. Meanwhile, the droids help to keep his kind of childish ways intact. And Leia, first of all, reveals a romantic side to Luke, and then reveals a kind of familial, brotherly, sisterly love. And of course, Darth Vader is Luke's shadow, is what Luke is afraid of becoming. All those characters give Luke a different aspect of his persona. So by the end of Star Wars, Luke has been all these different things, and you've seen so many different facets of his persona. So it's not Luke that is a great character in himself. What makes him great is the way all the other characters in Star Wars feed into his persona.
What can I say?
James Bond. Martini. Shaken or stirred. Sean Connery. Legend. You know a character is bloody amazing when they're able to carry a series into double figures. You also know a character has something special about them when style authors and dating authors tell guys that James Bond is the perfect example of how a dude should behave. These authors don't refer to real people in real life to show men how they might like to use their body language. They refer to James Bond as the quintessential example of style and sophistication. The James Bond represents another technique that writers use to create brilliant characters. What they do is they take one or two core strengths of the character and they escalate them and amplify them. Most iconic movie characters have one or two core strengths that are amplified to the nth degree. Katniss Everdeen, for instance, is brave and courageous, and the Hunger Games amplifies that bravery and courageousness, mostly when she takes her sister's place in the games. Frodo is humble, and he's got more self-control than a freaking nun. He's able to carry the Ring of Power, which offers him everything that he could possibly want, all the power in the world. Of course, it's a lie, but it's what it offers him, and he doesn't take it. That dude has more willpower than an Olympian. So what great writers do is they take one or two core strengths and they amplify them to the nth degree, and that's precisely what James Bond does. No dude in the history of the world has ever been as cool and sophisticated as James Bond, but you take a character and you make their strengths that profound and that amplified that they become archetypal and iconic. And that's why James Bond is one of the best movie characters of all time.
What can I say?
Ellen Ripley from Alien. Now, choosing the ultimate female character from any movie is not easy. Ever since Hollywood, thank God, kind of got over their sexism. There's still a bit of sexism in Hollywood, of course, but they got over the worst of it. Ever since that point, there have been seriously brilliant female movie characters. Holly Golightly, Katniss Everdeen, Hermione Granger, Clarice Starling. There are so many scintillating female characters that choosing just one is not easy. However, if I were to choose just one, it would definitely be Ellen Ripley from Alien. What makes Ellen Ripley one of the best female movie characters of all time? It's not the fact that she's blowing limbs off of aliens as though she were a typical male action figure. It's not that she's beautiful but powerful at the same time. It's the fact that she so perfectly represents the strength of women. She's able to be as brave, as strong, and as resilient as a soldier. But at the same time, she's caring and compassionate, looking after the crew and looking after Newt. Why does that matter? Because it means that Ellen Ripley is as strong as a male character, but she's also got that wonderful feminine strength as well. By marrying those two, Ellen Ripley becomes a masterful character. Now, obviously, screenwriter Dan O'Bannon and Ridley Scott knew how to produce a great female character. They understood that it will kind of be a bit insulting if you took a female character and just made them like the male characters, because that would be to completely eschew what it is to be a woman. So instead, they said, a woman can be as strong as a man, and she can also be as strong as a woman. And they put those two together to create one of the best female movie characters of all time.
What can I say? Excite, insight with the game type. Dip, stop, dip, stop, dip, stop, dip, stop, dip, stop, dip, stop. What can I say?